We haven't seen many Democratic victories tonight in the state of Indiana. I want to get inside our newsroom and bring in Dustin Grove. Dustin, did Dems pick up any other races tonight?
Let's give you a comparison from 4 years ago, Scott. So this is the map from 2020. Governor Eric Holcomb won with a 25-point lead over the Democrat Woody Myers. Marion County, Monroe County, and Lake County were the three counties that went blue. Now let's go to tonight in the race for governor, and Marion County, Monroe County, and Lake County are blue, as are Tippecanoe County and St. Joe County. The gap is 14 points, or I should say 15 points. But remember, only 70% of precincts are reporting. There are about 12 counties where we're still waiting on the votes to come in. And if history is any guide, most of these counties, if not all of them, will go red for the Braun campaign. So I'm curious to know what our panel thinks about that. Anne Marie, let's send it over to you. Maybe they can provide some insight.
Yeah, well, and they've also really been talking about this gubernatorial race here, Dustin, and you know, Jennifer McCormick, being a former Republican running as a Democrat, you would think that she would be able to maybe pull some of those Republican voters over in this gubernatorial race. So I guess the question is, and we'll start with you, Leanne, what can the Democrats learn from this gubernatorial race here? You were saying earlier, when you look at Jennifer McCormick as a candidate for your party, she's got a good resume.
Absolutely. I mean, Jennifer McCormick, you look at her resume, she was the ideal candidate to run. I think what is really it is very difficult to beat the Trump noise, to distance yourself from the Trump noise. I thought that she did a really good job trying to keep things local. But again, there was so much noise telling voters what to think, divisive narratives, that it's without money, it's really hard to break through all of that. And it's true, everyone's got really excited at the end because the Democratic Governors Association decided there might be something here. They saw the same things in Jennifer. And Braun, I will say this, he's really, if you look at the Republican primary, is quite an unpopular candidate. And so we did see a path for Jennifer McCormick, but it is without that money came really late, and it really needed to come about 18 months ago.
Yeah. So, you know, we kind of trace back to the GOP primary, and we were talking about Brad Chambers earlier. I mean, he was a popular candidate. How do you think that he impacted what we see tonight?
Well, Mike Braun's so unpopular that he's the next governor of the state of Indiana. Indiana is a Republican state, and the Democrats have won 2 statewide elections since in 2012, haven't won since then. Before that, the only one they won was when Evan Bayh ran and received the re-election to the Senate. I mean, you know, there's states like Vermont and Illinois that are just solidly Democratic, and Indiana is increasingly Republican. There's no indication, despite some cheerleading by some, that the state is going to get less conservative or less Republican. I worked for Suzanne Crouch in the primary. She had a solidly conservative message. You mentioned Brad Chambers. He had a great team working for him. Neither one of us could beat Mike Braun. So it's nothing about tonight is a surprise, which doesn't mean that you gloat. But you know, my ex-boss Murray Clark told me when I was working at the Republican Party, you always acknowledge the obvious. And the obvious is that the Indiana of Evan Bayh, Frank O'Bannon, John Gregg, Joe Donnelly is gone.
I think it's useful to offer some context here, and here I'm going to give a shout out to my research assistant Audie, who did this historical research for me. So looking at the figures for the previous 3 governors' races, so 2012, 2016, and 2020, remember my years here. Between that period, the margin of victory for Republicans over Democrats increased 88%. It's really remarkable if you think about how much Republicans have won in the past 12, in the previous 3 cycles going into this one. And so I think you're right. I think the Republican brand is very strong in Indiana. I am curious, because you brought up Chambers, what type of Republican Party we're going to see here in Indiana. Holcomb is very different from Braun. I wonder what we can expect moving forward. Braun was not as popular maybe as one would expect for someone who would like, he had some stiff competition. And so I do wonder what this will look like in the years to come.
Governor-elect Braun's made it clear how he's going to govern, pro-business, keep the state moving. But I would also say there's a victory in the recent history of Indiana politics that it just popped into my mind. I should have mentioned it before. That really should have told the tale. It's Todd Young beating Evan Bayh in 2016. Evan Bayh had all the momentum, had money, had name ID. Evan Bayh is a terrific public servant, and Young beat him. And if Evan Bayh can't win in Indiana against a guy running for Senate for the first time, Young was a congressman, then I don't know who they recruit to win unless it's Evan Bayh's son. And I don't know which philosophical wing of the party they embrace. Progressive, like we're going to do it the way other states do it, and Young and all that, or more traditional with the Evan Bayhs of the world. That's a problem Republicans don't have in Marion County. We have our own problems. But statewide, I don't know who you go to and what you embrace in terms of issues. If going full throttle on the abortion issue doesn't do it this time, is there any belief it'll do it next time? Or any other issue that could come up?
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the Bayh twins, as I saw that one just graduated from law school. They're serving military service. I mean, certainly when you look at their resume, I mean, they are positioning themselves that they could be entering the political fray in the future.
And for Marion County, for Republicans, crime. If crime isn't going to make people think twice about voting for Democrats, then we don't have an issue that's going to make them think twice about voting for Democrats for mayor of Indianapolis.
Well, one issue that really does seem to play strongly here in Indiana, at least, is the role of religion. And sometimes it seems like we've seen this equating of patriotism and religion and faith. And some people call this Christian nationalism, other people, you know, there's lots of terms out there. But let's just talk a little bit about what you view, from your perspective, the role of religion played in these races that are being decided right now.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. When Our Choice Coalition did a poll back in May, testing, you know, kind of some messaging. One of them was, I'm opposed to abortion, or I'm a anti-abortion voter because, and there are many different reasons, and because my religion tells me it's a sin was one of them, and that's the evangelical kind of right-wing Christian view. That was less than a third of respondents, and by the way, that was a majority Trump poll, so Trump voter poll. So, but I think what happens is that is still, I consider, kind of a fringe. Those that want to blur the line between the separation of church and state are still on the fringes. But when you are running a primary race, that's how you get people like Micah Beckwith. I mean, let's remind everybody that Micah Beckwith, who wants to create Christian councils, who made the Jezebel comment, was not the pick of Mike Braun, who we consider on the more conservative side. He's even to the far right of that. I don't think it's because of this surge of people voting their religion. I think it's because the system allowed this to happen.
It's Lieutenant Governor-elect Micah Beckwith. Very sorry.
You said you were going to be
someone who strongly leads with his faith, Christianity, and could be argued is an example of one of those people that has this equating of patriotism with Christianity.
If it was repulsive or repellent, we'd have a different result. I mean, something that's interesting is after every election and there's a loss, right? There's people who blame it on the campaign, blame it on the candidate, blame it on the issues, whatever. If Braun would have lost, everyone would have blamed Micah Beckwith. Everybody. I don't know Micah that well. He's been very pleasant when I've talked to him. He has a different strand of conservatism than I do. But again, at a certain point, when you keep saying this is too extreme, people don't like this, people are upset about this, but you keep winning, then exactly how extreme is it? How upset are they? I think Rob Kendall from Kendall and Casey show, WIBC, he's done a terrific job of this on social media where he keeps saying, okay, you're upset, people are mad, people are looking for a change. As Scott Swan's been saying, it's a red wave. So exactly why would we change anything?
In addition to studying race and politics, I study religion and politics. And we actually have here in Indianapolis one of the finest scholars of Christian nationalism in the country, Andrew Whitehead, a professor at IU Indy. So he's written extensively on this issue. I think Christian nationalism is a real force in American politics today. We see it as a real force here in Indiana. Micah Beckwith is a really powerful example. I think the most colorful example, but we see this idea that the nation and Christianity should be fused, present in the politics and the policies and the rhetoric of a lot of politicians. In the State House, we've seen it in the rhetoric of Rokita, I mean, a lot of Republican politicians, and so we have to pay attention to this. I will point out that one of the candidates for one of the State House races we're paying attention to, State House District 62, has a pastor running, but that pastor is running as a Democrat. So one thing I think is worth paying attention to, it's Thomas Horrocks, I should mention. So one thing it's worth paying attention to is the different ways Democrats are also drawing on religion. And we can't forget, of course, that there is a long history of Black Christians drawing on their faith, and that being a core part of how they engage in politics, and they are very heavily Democratic. And so I think religion is operating in a lot of different ways. Here in Indiana, I think it's really important for us to pay attention to the white Christian nationalism that I think is becoming a more potent force, in part because Republican politicians are more receptive to taking on their policy prescriptions and acting on them.
But
they're winning.
Well, hold on a second. If Micah Beckwith, if we had the same laws that Illinois did, or similar laws, and that we elected the lieutenant governor along with the gubernatorial candidate on the party side, and they were elected separately and the people got to vote, it wasn't a party. Because I mean, Micah Beckwith is the lieutenant governor of Indiana because he won over a very, very small handful of convention voters. That is really important for people to understand. This is about the structures that we allow to continue to perpetuate and exist. This is about our laws. And Micah Beckwith has run for things before, and he's never done well. People have rejected him, but we don't give the people the opportunity to reject him and stop him before he's allowed. And that is why, because it is what it is, that's why they welcome someone like Micah Beckwith with open arms in the party. I get it.
There's a lot of power from the pulpit, though. I mean,
It's a safe space for people. If I go to Mass at St. John's downtown and Father Nagel tells me about something, I kind of tend to say, well, this must be true because Father Nagel said it. The Black church has been the epicenter, the foundation of political participation in the Black community since 1865. Well, when they got the vote with the 16th Amendment, whenever that was, 1870, something late 1860. It always has been, it always will be. It's why you have a senator from Georgia named Raphael Warnock, who's a pastor. And so if it's good for the Democrats to do it, then it should be good for the Republicans. And if Republicans don't want someone as conservative as Micah Beckwith as their lieutenant governor, then run for state delegate and go to the convention and vote against him. Besides, Mike Braun's not the only governor or governor candidate to get rejected for someone he wanted. Mitch Daniels, the best governor of my lifetime, extraordinarily popular, didn't get who he wanted to be as the AG candidate. It just happens, and it happens on the Republicans and the Democrat side. When the grassroots have a voice, they are exceedingly unpredictable.
I should issue a correction, though. I think when we compare Republicans and Democrats and how they engage religious communities, Republicans engage primarily Christian and especially Protestant and sometimes Catholic voices. Democrats engage a wider range of religious voices. And so you could see that, for example, in who was invited to pray at the RNC and the DNC. The DNC had people, a wider variety of religious people praying, And the Democratic Party, I think, is the party of a greater commitment to religious pluralism than the Republican Party. So I think we should acknowledge that they are both engaging with religious communities, but very different ones and in different ways.
All right, thank you for your insight. We'll throw it back to Scott and Felicia.